everybody. Welcome to the next episode of MSP Business School. Very excited to be with you today. And with me, of course, I've got Rob and Tim. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well, sir. How you doing?
Yeah, how's everything going?
Hey, no complaints, right? And if we complain, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Right. How was that ice storm in your area?
We're in melt mode today.
Nice.
We're finally hitting that point where we're getting just warm enough, 36, 37.
Right.
It's balmy outside.
Yes. Shorts weather.
So I've seen, my 2 feet of snow get down to about a foot. How about you guys up there in the Great White North almost?
Got about
same thing. We were chipping away at the ice on the driveway yesterday, but we got another storm coming. But other than that,
it's going to be 9 tonight. So it's not cooling down yet.
Well, obviously, as you guys know, as we're recording this, we all have to keep our friends in Texas in mind.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's amazing how, we joke about the South having problems with storms because they have no snow gear, but when it starts impacting electricity and the capability to retain heat, our hearts go out. So, for
one of our clients is their whole business is on shutdown.
Yeah.
The whole thing is on shutdown. They can't do anything.
Yeah, and the salesperson that we're managing lives in a condo. A pipe burst somewhere, not in hers, but in a neighboring condo, and
it's going all over the place. It's trickling down from the ceiling. It's just a mess.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Creating chaos.
So, thoughts are with everybody out there as we joke about the snow up here in the Northeast. The reality is snow impacts everybody differently, and the cold impacts everybody differently. And hopefully we can see that region get back on track. By the time you guys listen to this, they'll probably be back in action stronger than ever.
Yep.
But anyhow, today we got an interesting episode for you. So as you can see, this is one of the roundtable sessions we like to do every few episodes where we give you some thoughts on what we've been seeing and what we've been hearing throughout the community. And today what we thought we'd do is we're kind of heading into the midpoint of the first quarter. What are some of the trends that MSPs and MSSPs should consider as we head into 2021? So, I think we determined, guys, one of the first things we wanted to talk about is really, the fact that there's a big shift in the MSP world to becoming an MSSP. And what that means and what these MSPs need to start considering as they make this change. Because while security never goes out of style, and I can certainly look at the business opportunity in it, it doesn't come without a liability. There's a lot of things to consider. So, I don't know if you guys have any particular thoughts you want to kick off with and get this discussion rolling.
Yeah, I think Rob and I have seen more and more over the last 18 months that there's this new kind of it club that you've got to be this MSSP, but with that, people are saying it, and it's a good selling feature, right? Because they can go to their prospects and their clients and they say, hey, look at us, we're an MSSP. But at their core, they don't necessarily understand fully what that means. And I know we've had a lot of security companies on here over the past couple months, and I think probably a large reason for that is because to help educate people what the real difference is between what an MSP does and what an MSSP does. And there's a big difference there. So
yeah, we're pretty conditioned to always think of our stacks, right, as MSPs out in the community. And, while operationally we can look at our stacks, when we start bringing in these security products, especially some of the more advanced security products, they're part product and part expertise. And what I'm seeing is a lot of times the product gets put out before the expertise sits behind it. And let's face it, that's how most of us grew our businesses, right? Say yes first and figure it out. But with security, there's a different thing to consider, and that's the litigation, potential and the loss potential to your company. Literally to the point where you could lose your company as a result of the things that come against you. I was speaking to an MSSP that I've got a close relationship with, and what I really heard from them is what they see in the marketplace and what's really helping them excel, which is what was driving the conversation, is they've got true security staff on site, not just people that understand endpoint security or understand, what an SEIM system does, but can read security logs, really dig deep in an incident response and be able to pinpoint where the breach really came from, and building a governance plan to really manage the security process around it. The point tools are great. They get you the information you need, but they're not helping you manage the flow, mapping it back to the business requirements, helping understand where the real critical data is. There's a lot of tools that help you shortcut it. I mean, and these tools are fantastic. Please don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but you can get files that
cutting edge.
You can get security that looks at files and says, these are the ones that could potentially be breached. But that's a component, because for them to be breached, you have to have gotten there, right? Yeah. So then it becomes the how have you gotten there? I've got companies that I work with that are giving security awareness for no cost as part of their MSP arrangements, because the more education there is, the more there is, and companies that are resistant to actually roll that out to their teams, even when it's free. So these are the things that, that as I'm stepping back, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this, is, hey, how do we manage this process? What does this really mean to us? And how do we partner with our customers here? Because this is security, unlike IT, is where we have to be a partnership, because most breaches happen in-house at the desk, and a lot of times by accident.
So I'd like to get your opinion, guys, on this. So right now, I think the dangerous part here is, what do? You got to get into security. Right. As an MSP, you got to get that's the way of the future. It's the next evolution of this business. But partnering with a security company and just outsourcing your security for your clients to that company makes you a VAR, right? And makes it so your sales rep has no idea what they're talking about other than features. Right? They have no expertise in selling that model. So do you guys think that you should just not even do security until you can bring it in-house and have that expertise on staff? Or are you guys comfortable outsourcing that whole portion of your business and then just having the person wear your shirt, right? White label it. That's the tricky part that I see out there. Going down that VAR road is even more commodity, in my opinion.
Well, and also I think, playing off of what Brian just said, like I actually look, there's so many moving parts to security, like so many compliance issues, HIPAA, whether you're dealing with HIPAA, government, whatever. The amount of resources and the amount of time, education, and all of that needs to take place. As weird as, or as bad as this might sound, you outsource the things that you don't know best, right? So I almost feel like it's not necessarily a bad thing to outsource the MSSP part in the beginning as you learn it. That being said, when do you bring it in house?
Now I'll kind of jump in my two cent stance on this, and again, this is my opinion. It's going to be a hybrid format for most for quite some time. And it harkens back to the old days of premier selling of Cisco, right? Cisco, to be a Cisco Gold partner, it cost almost 1.3. We did a study to see if we were going to go Gold partner, and it was about $1.3 million worth of salary I had to bring in to get all the certifications I needed across the multiple people, because one guy couldn't hold all, 7 certs or whatever the case may be. And so then I had to do the math and say, okay, for us to make back $1.3 million, how much of this do we have to sell, both in services and products, to drive this? And what we really came down to is we weren't losing enough deals to be gold level, or losing enough margin to be gold level, that we wanted to be the guys to be gold level. We would rather partner with a gold level partner for the product sale and then take what we could out of the services level. What I think you need to look at here when you're planning a security plan now is being really honest with yourself and saying, what are the skill sets we have? If you've got a single security person, you already know you got a problem, because that person only knows what that person knows. And, I wish I could draw it on the screen like this, but I used to do this thing called the star drawing. You basically draw a star and you put a circle around it. And that was about the IT rock star, I called it, right? Your IT rock star knows what he knows. And 90% of what he knows probably fit, and you're the circle. You fit in the circle. But just like anything, there's gaps. And where you have gaps, you have to reach outside. So if you can supply the tools, get the information, and watch the day-to-day flow from an alerts level, that's probably 90% of what you need to do. But now when you need to start really doing compliance preparation, when you need to really start understanding forensic deep dives when there is some sort of breach, or be able to track anomalies long term, you might have to partner with an outside SOC source. And I think that's a very easy conversation to have with your customer too, unlike if you're bringing somebody in for Windows. Here you're saying is, look, Mr. Customer, security is a serious endeavor for all of us. And before I can take you to that next level and really do what you need to do, I got to look into myself and say, look, we don't have all those skill sets. So we've partnered with this XYZ group that has this XYZ background, this XYZ depth and level of funding. So, they're there and they're bringing those processes to my team. And then you want to have an integration point with that group. That you've got to be working with a group that then, is helping you there. And what they might be taking on is things like penetration testing. They might be taking on the outsourced SOC stuff, but you're still managing endpoints and all that and bubbling up to them for information and escalation when you need to. So I think you're going to see, maybe more of that hybrid point until you get to some of the larger scale, more mature MSPs where they've got enough revenue generation and depth where they can start making that transition and just, I hate to say it this way, but probably letting go of some of the older skills and bringing in new people to replace them with the newer skills. And it's probably going to take, most MSPs realistically 4 or 5 years to make that full tectonic switch.
Unless from hybrid to in-house, you mean?
Well, I think really if you're really talking about being a mature MSSP, just like we talk about mature MSPs as well, right? And in the line in the sand, really what maturity is, do you have defined processes? Do you have duplication of efforts? Are you really running it as a multi-headed monster where, every it's not a single resource supporting your team, right?
Right.
You're able to build a pot of people to support an account, not a single person. That way, when people come and go, as they often do, it's not an issue. I think that it's going to be the same thing with the people that are going towards that MSP mode that are not already staffed up, right? Because some companies do. They were focusing on that to begin with. You go down into the DoD areas of life, right? Virginia, Washington, D.C., some of the areas in Chicago that have a lot of that. They've been dealing with those groups for a long time, so they were already security centric. And that's where the real opportunity is if you can get yourself to that point where you're operating like what you have to support and eating your own dog food, but really doing it, then you could do it. Because we all know we take care of ourselves much, much more worse than we would ever take care of a customer.
Yeah.
So
it is true.
I don't know if that made sense.
It does.
I got you. It does. Client first model.
Everybody's really good at telling everybody else go to the doctor, but
So I think to put a bow on this section so we can get to our next one. As you're going in to become an MSSP, think wisely, think of where your gaps are, but make the move, because there's truth. Security is not going out of style and break fix is going away every day, right? So you got to have something else to drive value in order to stay sticky with your customer long term.
It's that whole deeper, wider mentality, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think the next thing we wanted to talk about was really what the modern day sales cycle is going to look like for the service provider community, especially here in a soon to be post-COVID world, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you guys want to kick off this discussion. Maybe Tim, kind of give us a couple of your insights into how you think or what you're seeing as trends within the sales styles of the MSP today in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm in charge of here at OSR is bringing in the new sales. So I'm talking to a fair amount of prospects on a weekly basis, right? So one of the things that I've seen definitively over the last 6 weeks is regions are starting to loosen up. It's still, people still aren't going back to the office just yet, but there's more conversations about it now than there has been in the last year. So I mean, that kind of leads me to believe we're sitting here in the middle of March. Okay, middle of February. Maybe we'll do that instead. Middle of February. I mean, in a few months, there's going to be people going back to the office, right? And it's networking events are going to start to open up again, it won't be looked as blasphemy to do door to door, because we literally had a client last week actually that has a sales rep that is just sick of being inside. They want to go door to door. And the owner said no.
Yep.
And we were just like,
Not yet.
yeah,
But
like
on the flip side, to your point, and this industry is already planning for November return to conferences. So we're
Yep.
seeing that end of the rainbow.
Exactly. So I do going back to what you were just saying about a hybrid approach when it comes to transitioning to an MSSP, it's going to be a hybrid approach to getting back to the old normal, right? I mean, I don't think door to door is going to be acceptable for probably another 10 months, depending on where you live.
Yep.
But I do think networking is going to pick up, and I'll be the first to admit that I am, even though it probably won't financially benefit Rob or I to be a part of a local chamber here, I want to join one just so I can get out and meet people, right? And I think more and more people are going to be like that for the short term, and I think that's going to be the biggest change over the next 6 months, is being able to mix in networking with the calling, with the LinkedIn approach, with just every email that you send, and that's gonna open things up again. It's gonna open things up. You can be much more pinpointed with who you're going after.
Rob, what are your thoughts?
So what I'm seeing on my side is the buyer, our prospects are becoming a lot more educated and a lot more demanding than they used to be pre-COVID. And I'm not talking about 5 years ago. I'm talking about a year ago. They're consuming more information and they're demanding more education before they engage in the active sales cycle, right? So the thing that we're starting to look at more is doing more of the education pieces, no buying parts, right? So none of the benefit side of it, but just all the features of it and explanations of it. And people are consuming it a lot more. Number one. Number two is you can feel the bubble bursting with people's just wanting to release. And what I mean by that is funds, all the turtle funds that were out there for a long time where people just turtled up because of COVID, like vacations, everything, money, projects, all these pent up projects are now starting to be talked about and whispered about. And it's the people right now who are making the most educated calls are the ones that, like, within 3 to 4 months are going to start nailing all these projects. There's going to be a project boom before there's an MSP services boom, in my opinion.
Yep, and I think there's probably some good, those indicators are really pushing to that, Rob, because, it's just like even home, right? Everybody was holding on to cash to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And some businesses, cash never really changed, right? The IT industry being one that would say, unless you were catering to the markets that were hard hit, like, hospitality and entertainment, most MSPs I was talking to said, yeah, project numbers might be down, but service numbers have gone up. Work from home projects certainly carried the game. And truthfully, most of them are, at worst break even, and many have excelled during that time. So if you're one of those companies, though, you still kept your spending in check. That's, that's the piece. So, right. So now you're sitting on some money. Everybody's just coming through the tax, or, we're midway through the tax period, but doing those kind of things and really seeing, okay, we're okay. Coming out the other side, we see some light at the end of the tunnel, but we know things probably shouldn't change from our current status. How are we going to go blow it out, right? And I think you're right, spot on there. So, from a sales perspective, it's how do you get to those prospects now, right? The one thing that's going to be interesting during the transition is who goes back to the office, right? I still think there's going to be a lot of people that are virtual and not in the office. And that doesn't necessarily, look, prospecting's prospecting. Getting anybody on the phone, no matter where they live, is a challenge to itself, right? Yep. You've got to be creative. I don't think the location's going to matter so much. It's going to be then, what do these meetings look like in the next generation of sales too?
Yeah.
Is it going to be partially on site, partially remote in a Zoom type situation? Our office is going to have to build almost Zoom specific conference rooms. There's plenty that have it, but I'm talking downstream to the small market, because they're going to want to bring their employees in as if they were there, because there's going to be an assortment of them that don't come back to the offices. What's commercial real estate going to look like? And what's that mean to the salesperson too? And probably not much to the salesperson salesperson making their money, but more about, when you're foot canvassing, how many empty buildings you're going to walk into, and are you going to, is that going to be an effective motive?
I know.
Is that going to be effective mode for you? So, when I look at what the salesperson has to do in 2021 is they've got to remain creative. They've got to look at how, the mediums that they can reach people like LinkedIn without caring about their geographic location. They got to be adaptable. If somebody wants you to come in, be ready to come in. And if somebody says they want to do it remotely, you better have a good spiel on, remotely. Yeah. If you don't have your Zoom sales calls figured out by now, or your team sales call figured out by now, you're never going to figure it out.
I was going to say, it'll never, if you don't have it by now, it'll never happen.
Yeah, and I think we've all gotten so comfortable where before this whole crisis, people were not comfortable in front of the camera. I think we're now at a stage where people are like, yeah, bring it on. It's all good. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're used to hearing their voices. They're used to being on camera, and it works out pretty well.
This would have never happened without COVID. Can you believe that just this massive shift, this whole paradigm shift is all because of this COVID disaster? But I 100% agree with you. Brick and mortar's in trouble. Yeah. Not everybody that went home is not going to come back to the office. And there's a lot of things changing.
It'll forever change the sales game. There's no reason. So I could very easily see how, insert average MSP or insert traditional MSP here. They've got their 50-mile radius. They don't want to drive more than an hour. Yep. Some of that is because they don't want to have to be going back and forth to prospecting calls all day. This could drastically increase people's radiuses from the standpoint that they don't have to drive to that location 3 times to close a deal anymore. Maybe they only have to go there once.
Yep. So you can start clustering far away.
Yeah.
Right.
Like just,
you're seeing the efficiency there and that's a great point, Tim, is you build that relationship once, you can maintain the relationship many ways. And if you can show up, do that first call, maybe prospect and get to know the person, there's no reason you can't do it like this after that. Yeah. And really streamline everybody's time. I mean, I've been amazed. On a good day, I used to be able to do 3 sales calls, because also once you got there, an hour meeting would turn into an hour and a half just because you're kibitz in a bit, right? People now know the top of the hour usually means somebody has to drop off.
Yep.
There's that aspect of it. And, I look at days like yesterday I had 9 different individual client and or prospect meetings in one day. That was a good week. Yeah. Back in the, on the road days where you could really have that much touch. Yeah. So anyway, modern salesperson, adaptable, understanding, and try new tactics. I think that's what we're saying.
Two things real quick before we part on this one. LinkedIn, all in on it. You better be using LinkedIn. You better be using Sales Navigator, because if you're not, your competitor is, and they're getting a competitive advantage over you. Figure out LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Figure out the automations that go with it. You better be doing it. That's number one. Number two, we have a client that in the beginning of this entire pandemic failed hard on getting everybody to the remote. They were not ready. They were understaffed because they had grown too fast, and they could not get all of their staff or all their clients to the home offices. However, right now, if you fell into that area where you had a lot of big tickets and you had a lot of bad, lot of issues with all your clients, you can bring them back. You can white glove them back, and you'll be okay. It's what have you done for me lately? And they won't remember that in the past. They'll remember this new stuff. And if you can white glove them now, you'll be okay. Yeah. So we just got done having that conversation with the client. We've been working on how to repair that relationship with their clients, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. If you failed in the beginning, the rebound will make it all up.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to take some of what you just said there, Rob, and we're going to move that into our final topic for the day. And this is really, the number 3 thing that an MSP or an MSSP needs to do in 2021. Find a way to differentiate yourself against your competition. Right. So, the first thing I'm going to take is your LinkedIn concept there, Rob. And I'm a huge believer of all in. And I got to admit that LinkedIn has been a wealth of relationship and, lead source for my organization. But I'm going to caution, everybody jumped on this bandwagon here, right? Mm-hmm. So the problem you got is, and this is typical of the marketplace and of all of us, right? We're trying to find the shortest way to get where we go. Hey,
that's right.
We just had Kevin on from MSP Growth Hacks, right? But the reality is, in doing that, the challenge that we face is we can become very similar and our message can be drawn out. So my two tips, for MSPs, as you look to differentiate yourself, when you're doing your marketing, find a way to hack it, but not look like every one of your competitors, right? Think of your LinkedIn streams. You've got nothing but cybersecurity stories going on all day long. They all look like one big story and you don't remember which company said what, right?
Yep.
When you get these things on LinkedIn, and you guys are business owners as well as sales, execs in that regard, right? So, the connections that are coming in. Hey, thought I'd connect with you. We're in the same industry. Everybody's using the same script.
Yep.
And immediately once you accept them, they're hitting you over the head with a sales message. Yeah. You can't have a sales message. You got to drop some value along the way. You got to invest for the long term. And you got to say, I'm going to engage with this person this way. My 2 cents on what's working for us. We get hooked up with them by just saying, hey, no pitch here. We want to do some content with you. Mm-hmm. Second thing is, hey, no need to even put in an email address. This is our Power QBR. You don't need my software, but if you're looking to do this process, this is a 6-step process to doing it no matter what platform you're on. Third thing I'll say is, let's get 15 minutes to chat. I want to learn more about you. Make it about them, make it more about driving value. And if you do see key executives you really want to connect with, get in touch with them immediately, right? I've met some of the people that have been industry leaders for years that I couldn't get to as I was an MSP, that now in my role here, I've been able to get to and really foster some relationships. And we're starting to kick some pretty interesting ideas together too, between our organizations. And all this happens because you're just being real. You're being authentic. You're being yourself. And that drives value.
Well, and I think I'll echo what you just said about getting in front of some people that, different kinds of people, right? Rob and I I think I've probably me a little bit more, but Rob and I have both spent have spent a lot more time on LinkedIn over the last year. And I gotta say it's really created a lot of new relationships for us. I mean, to the point where people, specifically people within the MSP space that 2 years ago I never would have thought I'd be talking to, now I'm kind of talking to them all the time. It's helped expand our network, and for us, going and talking to MSP, it's really helped us. But for a salesperson in a territory, it's all about just, like you said, hitting them with educational content, all in an effort to be different than the next person, and then you try and find people you have in common, and you use that to your advantage. You just do. I mean, that's what works in this world right now.
LinkedIn's kind of like on an edge right now, right? It has the ability to be a very powerful engine, but because so many people are going into it and using these automated systems, it's got the danger of going into email spam territory, and you see the stuff come in because it goes right to your inbox, right? All my LinkedIn stuff goes right to my inbox. I see it. And sometimes I see these, just chain messages, and you just know it's a canned message. They have absolutely no idea who I am. And it's effort in equals effort out. Same thing with anything. But LinkedIn is, I love LinkedIn. I love it for the education, for the network building. I don't use it for sales, but I like it for the education and network.
I like it for the education and network, but I think you're missing the boat by not bringing in some sales. It's just, you got to do it the right way. Make sure you're building that relationship, get to a point where you know where it's the right time to act. And then we call it 15 and a follow-up. You just want to go for a quick 15-minute message to even just meet the person, establish that relationship, honor that 15 minutes unless they want to extend it out. And then what's our next step?
Yeah,
what's our next step? It's just 15 and a follow-up. And again, this is where the Zoom world really works that way, because people can get to that. They know you're not coming to the office now. It's not an hour, right? It's 15 minutes. Hey, let's see if we even align in the world. Hey, we don't align in the world. Hey, it was great meeting you. Hey, we do align. Or maybe it's, we don't align now, but let's stay in touch. Let's do this once a quarter and see how each other's businesses change. And maybe at some point we intersect.
Yeah. So I like, for my sales reps, what I like to do is I like to call first and then try and hook up on LinkedIn. So I do it the other way. Yep. And the LinkedIn there is, just use it as a passive touch point after a first active touch point. But like everybody's got their system, and I like the LinkedIn side to be the education and the networking
Well,
afterwards.
Rob, I think you came up with an episode we should do down the road, a debate on sales styles.
Oh, I'd love it. No,
I am
take it on.
totally opposed to that for a whole different host of reasons. One being that I'm seeing that 100 dials sometimes only yield 7 or 8 people. So how do I get to people faster? That's my 2 cents. But we're not here to talk about that topic. We're here to talk about how MSPs can differentiate themselves. So let's kind of move into the next thing. We just talked about how the sales teams can differentiate yourself, but how can the business overall differentiate themselves out in the marketplace? So, Tim, you want to kick us off on that discussion, and we'll kind of round robin again as we just did.
Yeah, I think content right now is pretty large. What we're finding that the MSPs that they're large enough to have a marketing person on staff, or they have found a good partner with an outside marketing company. Having a good marketing message mixed together with a salesperson, that alone has we've found separated MSPs right there. It's all about patience and consistency, right? And when you've got a salesperson, they should be good on the calling side. They should be good on one-off emails and LinkedIn, just like we talked about. But they shouldn't, if their day is set up correctly, they don't have the time to be setting up campaigns on the side and making sure that a warm 250 list is getting this and that and the other thing. That's where you either need to, if you have the resources, bring somebody internally to help you with that on a day in, day out basis. But if you don't have those resources, find a good company out there that can help you with that in conjunction with a salesperson.
So really, you're talking sales velocity and momentum.
Yes.
Really needs to be picked up.
Yep.
And I appreciate the fact that you kept Rob from saying the top 250.
Yeah. I beat him.
That's it. So Rob, do you got anything now that he did that?
I got nothing. He stole my line. Stole my line, the jerk.
So, anything you want to add about separation? You got another thought process of how an MSP can differentiate, overall in the market?
Here's the thing that I see pretty much 95% of the MSPs out there messing up. When they're going into their on-site, their unique selling proposition is, we can do all these services. And the prospect just doesn't understand it, doesn't want to try and understand it. They just want to know that you're the smart guy that's going to come and fix their stuff. Mm-hmm. So how do you identify with that person? The way that you differentiate yourself is to give yourself unique benefits that lets that prospect know that you're there to take everything off their plate, not tell them about all the bells and whistles that Net Detective found on their site. Right? How do you differentiate yourself? Get a better sell. Be able to talk about the benefits with your prospect, and it has nothing to do with the features. That's the number one way that will set you apart from everybody. That, and don't have yourself a 30-page proposal in all words, 10 font size.
Yeah.
A big wall of text coming over and knocking the prospect down.
Animal. But I'll say this. We're in a sea of sameness, right? There's a lot, we always argue in this industry that we're being commoditized. Yet you go out and visit MSP's websites, they all say the same thing, right?
They're all blue.
Where do you get the differentiators when people bring their own personality into the spirit, things, right? Mm-hmm. But that said, don't be the guy that goes to a client site and goes, what makes you different? What's our people? Well, your client expects that everybody's hiring good people. Right.
You wouldn't be in business if you didn't.
You're not running your company hiring bad people, right? The other thing is table. Okay, so if you want to talk table stakes, the other thing is they also expect that everybody that comes in as an IT service provider can answer the bell and service.
Yeah,
that's you're in business. I assume you can do this.
Yeah.
So how do you elevate your game? How do you get into a different conversation with the customers? You got to get strategic. I've said this many times in many episodes before, but you got to get in tune with what the company needs. You got to sell your why. That's one of my favorite books. And then there's the story brand model by Donald Miller, where you got to know what you are bringing to the table that's unique and can help drive that customer. So it's not even just understanding your why, it's understanding their why, so you can see how you're going to help them drive that piece. And then it's your portfolio of how do you make that unique there? Do you bring in a specific line of business app for one specific app group? Do you want to become more of a CFO, CIO kind of component with your customer? do you want to go down the other side and you're going to help them with analytics? Find something that's going to bring them business value to separate yourself against the people that you're going up against. Otherwise,
here's the thing.
Otherwise, it's a price proposition, right?
It is.
It is.
It's your fault, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you go in there and you try and solve their problem. The next IT company is coming in there and trying to solve the problem too. The reason you're chatting is because there's an issue, right? But that's not really what you're there for. You're there to solve why the issue is not helping them meet their corporate goals.
Yeah.
That's where the the benefits are. And that's where the story brand is. Being able to talk to, the why of the issue is how you separate yourself out, because the next guy is going to come in there, put on his IT hat and solve that issue just like you, because you're both competent, smart people who own IT companies. So you got to make sure your messaging is completely different. And, please make sure your proposal is,
Yep. And, and you just hit on the biggest thing. So many people are still owner-led sales. Take advantage of the fact that you're an owner. When you're in there talking to their executives, understand you're on the same playing field. And a lot of guys don't feel that way yet.
It's the lack of confidence, right?
Yeah,
but they are. I mean, they are. I 100%
We're all experiencing the same issues. Well, guys, we've covered a lot today, and I think we've covered a lot and we've covered it well, I hope. You can let us know in our comments if you feel differently, but I think we've wrapped that up. So, Rob, I'm going to throw it to you to take us out of here.
Sure. This was a good one for anybody who wants to get more information. This episode will be on mspbusinessschool.com or anywhere that you get your podcast. And just closing thoughts, I just want to let everybody know that the calling first model and then using LinkedIn is the better model. Using LinkedIn first for MSPs. So with that, everybody, we'll head out, and we look forward to talking to you next time.
Rob has no idea how I will prepare for that episode.
Yeah, good.
Anyhow,
it's on.
It'll be a fight to the death.
Take care, folks.
All right. Bye.
All right.